Hello everybody, Dr. Dave here in sunny South Florida at the Institute of Human Performance with my dear friend Juan Carlos Santana. First, I want to tell you that there's a couple of reasons I'm here. The main reason I'm here is the man who's sitting to my right is one of the absolute best functional trainers on the planet. And there are many things I like about JC, but the thing that I like about JC and coming down to IHP here in Boca Raton is there's always something new to learn. And I don't stay away that long, but even those short times that I stay away, I come back and you're on the next planet, the next development, so far ahead head and shoulders above everybody else in functional training that I know, and I've been around lots of places. So it's a great pleasure to be here again.
Thank you. Welcome to your home, second home.
My home away from home. Thank you. The other reason I'm here, or one of the other reasons I'm here, is we just released, meaning myself and my co-authors, Greta Blackburn and Mike Fossil, released a book called Immortality Edge. It's available at all major booksellers now, The Immortality Edge. And in that book, we talk a lot about longevity and how to keep yourself alive longer, how to be healthy longer. And as you know, we included a chapter in that book on exercise. Naturally, we can't cover everything, so I want to expand and give the readers of that book and my audience and JC's audience more value. And so today we're going to talk about something called the serape effect.
Serape effect.
And the serape effect, I know you literally can dissect this down to the actual biomechanics, physiology and everything, but let's start more or less with something simple and then expand away. So serape effect basically explains how we rotate.
Right.
And, we rotate in more ways than people realize. We even rotate when we walk and when we run. So starting with locomotion, and take it away, JC.
Yeah,
what it is and how we do it.
We even rotate when we're not rotating, okay? Which we have that concept here called training the invisible, which is to train a musculature without moving that musculature in its normal plane or range of motion. But anyways, we'll talk about that later. The serape effect basically describes how the right shoulder is connected to the left hip and how the left shoulder is connected to the right hip. So in other words, the serape effect describes the cross segment or the cross pattern of the body. Real simple. That cross pattern is used in everything that replays are made out of in sports, and there's just very hard to find a functional activity in everyday life that does not have the serape effect involved in it. And to give you an example for clarity, simple thing as walking. Notice that when you walk, you cancel out rotational forces with the right arm going forward as your left leg is going forward. How do you think those cross segments connect? They connect through the middle, and then the next stride is the next two opposing segments, and that crisscross allows human locomotion. So human locomotion is just like a bicycle. The only reason that we can displace our center of mass in a linear fashion is because we can rotate. So if you look at a bike, it's got two wheels. What does that tell you? Well, we move forward by rotating. Same thing in the human gait cycle. We move forward by rotating. The same thing is true on throwing, and basically anytime you're doing something with a single limb, whether holding, throwing, pulling, or if you're doing a bipedal motion, one leg in front of the other, you are rotating. How simple is that?
Okay. And for instance, you use several illustrations: walking, running, throwing. There's literally no sport or almost no human activity that you can do without some sort of rotation. And expanding that concept a little bit, it's not just about what we would consider obvious rotation, but about deceleration of rotation too.
Right.
And so this is what we would call an antagonist-agonist system.
Right.
And the front and the back can be either or, depending on what your activity is. It's actually a brilliant design.
Yeah, it's real simple design. It's an X in the front and it's an X in the back. When this musculature here is accelerating, for example, a pitch or a throwing motion, and I accelerate using this musculature here, all right, the musculature in the back using the same orientation is going to decelerate that motion. And if you want to see how the decelerators will accelerate, imagine a backhand in tennis. Well, the diagonal back musculature is loaded, but when I hit that ball, the front diagonal decelerates that motion. So what accelerates for throwing decelerates for something else, and what accelerates for something else decelerates for throwing. So in other words, it's like you say, this bicep and tricep, agonist, antagonist, throughout the entire body in a cross pattern, front and back, done.
Now, in terms of power generation, again, whether it's walking or running or throwing, if you initially look at an activity or a sport, you might say, okay, well, I'm a pitcher, I need a strong shoulder and a strong arm.
Right.
But really the power generation comes from the transfer of force from the ground through the hips up to so the serape and the muscles involved in the serape really become truly much more important in power generation in most sports than the end organ, so to speak, where you see it.
No doubt.
So the importance of training the serape in sports is huge.
Absolutely. The serape involves the core musculature. And the serape is a concept from Logan and McKinney in the 70s, which involved the musculature kind of from the waist up. And then Yanda, Vladimir Yanda, a wonderful physical therapist from the Czech Republic, had the anterior and posterior oblique systems, which is kind of, he crossed the pelvis. Here at IHP, we're putting those systems together to create the anterior serape and the posterior serape to include all of the musculature involved in the Logan McKinney model and the Vladimir Yanda model. But now, with that being said, why is this rotation so important in power? Think about this. If you just were a kangaroo and you just hopped, boom, 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 forward, 2 legs at a time, you would be involving one plane of motion, the sagittal plane. When you start rotating, you load up 3 planes of motion. You load up the sagittal plane, the frontal plane, and the transverse plane, and that's how a pitcher pitches. How does he line up? Sideways. What's the first step? Sideways. What happens in the middle? He rotates so he can face forward. And then what happens? Boom, the arm goes by. So it was this. Boom. He went in the frontal plane, transverse plane, sagittal plane. The core is the hand on the whip. The arm is the whip. So he used all 3 planes of motion to load up the hand. The whip just went for the ride. So here we train the core using the anterior and posterior serape, and we really don't worry about the shoulder and the arm. And you see all the rehabilitative stuff happens at the shoulder and the arm. Because the shoulder and the arm gets hurt. Why? Because they try to use the shoulder and the arm because they don't have the hand. We work on the hand, and the shoulder and the arm go for the ride, and that's why we don't have any shoulder problems here at the Institute of Human Performance, because we work the anterior and posterior serape, understanding that the hand is what gives the whip power. Okay? The core is what gives this motion power. We don't train this. Here's where it blows out because you don't train that. Okay? So that, in very simple language, is who made the serape, who made the anterior posterior oblique system, what they are, which is a cross pattern front and back. What does that allow you to do? It allows you to load 3 planes of motion, all right, instead of just 1. And everybody knows that if you summate 3 planes of motion, you're going to get a greater quantity than if you just use 1. So that's why rotation is so beautiful. That's the impact that the serape has on rotation, and that's why when I say rotation is what replays are made out of. Show me a replay, and I'll show you rotation.
I can't argue with that. I've seen a bunch of them this week, and they all involve significant rotation.
All of them.
And truly the best athletes in the world rotate the best.
The better the rotator, the better the athlete.
Now, the other thing I want to bring out is, why as a longevity expert here at IHP? I'm here for a couple of reasons. Number one is because as a longevity expert and a telomere expert, I want to keep my body as functional as possible, as strong as possible, and as powerful as possible, and I want to do it efficiently. I don't want to waste time doing a bunch of stuff that isn't going to help me, because I'm a busy person. Odds are you are too. So we know from longevity studies that power generation is correlated directly with longevity. Something called sarcopenia, loss of muscle, dynapenia, loss of power. The 2 are actually independent to some degree, believe it or not. And I don't want that to happen to my body. So no matter what pills I take, no matter what telomerase activators I take, no matter what supplements I take, I still have to use this body. I still have to rotate this body. I have to use it efficiently. And as I get older and as I treat older people, my parents and people who are in their 80s and 90s and beyond, their goal is to get through life without hurting themselves and to get through life with enough power to do their basic activities. You start taking those things away, you start seeing people die.
Right.
So I'm here early in the game. I'm learning what I need to know to take it back to the people that I love and care about. And frankly, if you want a source for everything that you need to know about physical exercise, including the kind that keeps your telomeres longer and the kind that is going to be very efficient at getting you strong and powerful and functional in order to do whatever you want, even if you don't do a sport, just improving your walking, lifting groceries, carrying the kids around, etc., etc. IHP is where it's at. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, I mean, look, you can keep someone alive in a state of a coma, and they are not much good to anybody. So sustaining life is not the end-all be-all. Just like being fit is not the end-all be-all, because we see some of the fittest people on the planet are actually some of the sickest people on the planet. So fitness and longevity don't always go hand in hand, but there's no reason why they should not go hand in hand, because one complements the other if it's done in the proper progression and the proper dose. That is why functional training is so important, because we concentrate on function. We don't concentrate necessarily on how you look, but it's very hard to function well and not feel well. It's very hard to function well and not look good, but it's very easy to look good and not function well. It's very easy to be fit, have a high explosive vertical, be able to bat a ball 400 feet, and have diabetes, have cholesterol, have a host of problems, inflammatory responses, your internal organs, etc. So when you start looking at getting out of the hole, what do I mean by that? The hole is corporate America. Artificial lighting, no outside stimulus, everything is done through text, so there's no interpersonal communication, and artificial foods. That to me is jail. That's the hole, and we call that careers. You have to recognize it for what it is. A career in a top company puts you in the hole. You're sitting for 14 to 16 hours a day, maybe longer. You're eating artificial foods, you don't talk to people, and you're in artificial light. That's all jail type conditions, okay? So the movement around like-minded individuals starts getting you out of the hole, especially if you can move outdoors. So those are the types of things that you got to look at: movement, synergistically moving, and putting the right feels in your bodies are huge. As a matter of fact, I would dare say that disease that we see today are probably 80 to 90% what we come in contact with, especially what we eat.
My feeling is arthritis is curable. I think that arthritis is a combination of poor nutrition and biomechanical dysfunction, and that's another reason why I'm here.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing this information with
My
us.
pleasure.
And if you folks come down to sunny South Florida, Boca Raton, look up IHP, the Institute of Human Performance, Juan Carlos Santana. And if you can't get down here, it's very easy to get to his website, ihpfit.com. You know I'm on it.
Yep.
You know I own everything he makes. And I'm always down here asking what's new, and there's always something new.
There's always something new.
And don't forget our book, The Immortality Edge. It's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all major booksellers. And my website, www.drdavesbest.com. We hope to see you down here in Boca Raton, sunny South Florida, where the best come to train, and the brave and brilliant come to get tortured and learn. Thanks so much, man.
My pleasure,
Appreciate
Doc.
it.
Thank you.